Thanks, Deanna. And thank you to Colin, and thanks to all of the readers, including Mark. It was great to hear all of your work, and it's lovely to be here. I'm going to kind of go backwards in time. I'm going to start with some poems from my most recent book, Hard Ass, and then read from a couple of previous books, too. Just a few from each book. This is the new book, Hard Ass, and I moved to Fredericton 13 years ago, going on 14 years. When I moved there, I was a swimmer. I moved there from Victoria, British Columbia, and Victoria is a great place to be a swimmer because there are a number of pools. Fredericton is a rotten place to be a swimmer. There are 1 million hockey rinks and 2 pools. And so, and the public swim times are very restricted, so swimming became this totally stressful experience, and it's something that I had always done in order to relax. And I was finding that I had to relax after swimming. And I knew I had to find some other source of physical activity, so I ended up going to a gym, and I got involved in bodybuilding. I even did a bodybuilding competition, which was a really interesting and totally weird experience. And eventually worked my way into a CrossFit gym, which is where I've been going now for a couple of years. And it's a different experience from bodybuilding. They're kind of different philosophies, but inevitably those activities worked their way into my poetry. Anything that happens in my life ends up working its way into poetry. And I love the gym, going to the gym and working out as a metaphor, because in the gym you get stronger through failure. Failure, like if you push yourself to where you fail, you know that you're working hard, and that is how you get stronger. So this is something that is a wonderful metaphor for life, and something that I wanted to work with in poetry. So I'll start with the first poem in the book. At CrossFit, we do a mix of strength work and conditioning work. And the strength work is mostly Olympic weightlifting moves that you see in the Summer Olympics. Things like we do clean and jerk and the snatch and all these different kinds of moves. And they're very complicated, most of them, but you have to get the form. If you don't have the form is really important, because that's what helps you lift weight. Like if you don't, the point of having the proper form is that you can get the heavy weights up there. So I find all of that really difficult. But the one move that's easy to understand is the deadlift. The deadlift is just the bar is down there on the ground, and you grab it and you stand up with it. And that's all you have to do. It's my favorite move. It's the hardest, though, because you have the most weight. The deadlift, there's a lot of weight on the bar, but it's easy to understand. So this poem is called Deadlift, and it goes into that, but it also has to do with, my oldest sister died when she was 30. She was exactly 10 years older than me, and she had been sick for 20 years. I kind of grew up with my sister who was sick. She had brain cancer, and something like that totally messes up your family. And I saw my parents dealing with this. I saw my parents dealing with, their first child together disintegrating before their eyes. And it's something that I've dealt with in poetry over the years. I've always, I've gone back to that again and again, but I got to a point in my life where I realized I had to just let that go. It wasn't my tragedy, it was my sister's tragedy. It wasn't my tragedy, it was my family's tragedy, but, it was like my sister's tragedy, and let it go. So that's in here too. This is Deadlift. Lift that dead weight, my sister's suffering, the abominable pain of a teenager's cancer, how she longed to die, lobbing obsolete toys at the obsidian-flowered bedroom walls, her knobby fists on the chic white shag, and me, 10 years her junior, 5 or 6, witnessing the recurrent melees, squad cars in the driveway, sedative syringes, a night ambulance strobing the red windows, our stone-faced mother so calm under her beehive, an obligatory facade. Lift, my father sobbing beside the green Chevy, not so much raising the plates as pushing the floor away, slowly, patiently, shoulders slung back, chest up. The pity, my mother's burden, a grief so poisonous it had to remain hidden. How hard it is, even now, to forgive my sister. Once it was called the health lift, hitting the glutes, hamstrings, quads, and core. You lock out tight and straight at the top, loopy-eyed, vertiginous, every cell in your body about to pop, and then drop the bar, a cold cadaver clattering. CrossFit and bodybuilding have a different philosophy. I started out with bodybuilding, and in bodybuilding you isolate the muscle, and you work the muscle in isolation. CrossFit is more of a total body kind of thing and more focused on functional strength. So this is the next poem I'm going to read goes back to my bodybuilding days, and it's an exercise, a tricep exercise called the skull crusher, where you're lying flat on the bench and you've got a weight, a dumbbell in your hand. So you're lying flat on the bench and the dumbbell is going up and down like that. And it's called the skull crusher because if you drop it, it's going to land on your head. And it's works the tricep. The tricep's important too, that's in the poem, because it's like the bicep is the muscle that everybody focuses on, it's like the Arnold thing, but the tricep is the bigger muscle. So that's what you work if you want big arms. Skull crusher. The bicep's the starlet, pouty sex pot, Bardot or Lorraine lounging in limousines. But if colossal arms are what you want, the tricep's your man. Tuxedo-clad, blasé, smoking behind a pillar. The larger of the two muscles, yet elusive, easily overlooked, downstage, its horseshoe cocked out of sight. To work it, think backwards. Push, not pull. A subtle, focused movement, lacking the curl's sideshow bombast. Or lie on the bench, face up, a dumbbell socketed in your palm, elbow raised, and lower the weight to your brow, the tricep dragging. It's your stay, your guy wire, invisible block and tackle that snags the heft, preserving your skull. Painful, yes, and vaguely frightening, yet worthwhile, like unveiling a shadow, the televangelist's sordid sex habits, the financier's Ponzi scheme. Behind the biceps facile, he doesn't love me, lurks the triceps harder truth, I don't love him. When you join a gym, the first thing they ask you is, what are your fitness goals? What are your fitness goals? And, like for a lot of, like it's, lose some weight, improve cardiovascular health, all of that kind of stuff. For me, it was to have a hard ass. I think it's important to have a goal. And, if you have an impossible goal, then there's always something to work toward. Yeah, I'm not there yet. I'm thinking maybe like by the time I'm 80, maybe. So when I was doing bodybuilding, I was working mostly on my own. And I read in a magazine, this is what you do if you want a hard ass. You do squats, lunges, and deadlifts. And I designed my own kind of routine that I would do 2 or 3 times a week in the gym. And that's what this is about. This is the title poem, Hard Ass. 150 Smith machine squats over an hour, sets of 10, alternating with biceps and triceps, Not too much weight, but as low as possible on the declension, and on the upthrust envisioning Atlas, Pythagoras, even that pea pod in grade 8 science, how it shoved the crust of loam aside as it unfurled. Stiff-legged deadlifts, walking lunges with 15-pound dumbbells, spine erect, each bruised knee smacking the floor. Hamstring curls, the glute machine's equine kickback, and finishing it off with the lying bridge, a 30-pound plate on my hips, lifted and held to a count of 20, 10 times, 2 sets, the goal being overload, quaking, tearing and scarring, and in the end, pardon me, an ass like rock, monolithic, enduring as hatred, that unseen core of silence that remains unswayed, undeceived, beyond hypocrisy or triviality, the unshaken ground beneath me, the darkness that I fall back on, the depth that elevates, propels me through the salt-dappled double doors of the 24/7 gym into the light and strength of each damned day. In the summer at CrossFit, when the weather's okay and we can go outside, we run. I hate running. I suck at it. Everybody's way ahead of me. You know, I'm always the last to finish. And then what they do every once in a while when we have a run in the workout is they make it a sandbag run. And the sandbag, everything, CrossFit is scaled. Most, like everything, all the weights are scaled. So I'm working out beside the 200-pound guys, but the 200-pound guys are, you know, like lifting 150 pounds over their head, and I'm lifting 35 pounds. It's all scaled back, except for the sandbag. When we do sandbag runs, the first time they said, okay, go grab your sandbag, and I go back there and there's like a stack of 50-pound sandbags, and I said, well, where are the little sandbags? They're like, no, just, you know. So I got to take this 50-pound sandbag, and the big guys, they take the sandbag, and they throw it up onto their shoulders, and they go run with it. For me, like, it takes me like 5 minutes to get the thing up onto my shoulders. And CrossFit also has this mentality where, you know, you just do it and you don't get help. You just do it. So I've got to haul the thing up there, get it on my back, and then go run. And it's my least favorite exercise at CrossFit. But then when it's done, it's great. There was a photo from the Olympics recently. It was the end of a ski race, and I think it was women. Maybe you saw this photo. They were all just lying on the snow at the end of this race. And people were saying, oh, okay, that's how you know they were working hard. That is the end of every CrossFit workout. We're all just lying on the ground. This is 400-meter run with sandbag. To have as much compassion for those who cause pain as for those on whom pain is inflicted. For the tyrant as well as the dispossessed, the seducer and the seduced. That is the burden. The 50-pound sandbag that lends drama to the run makes the effort more meaningful. To heave that impossible onus onto my scraggy shoulder and stagger with it into the new life, a life sans rage, where guilt and absolution are equally irrelevant. Aren't we all afflicted alike? Each of us splayed, spread-eagled on the mud-dappled black rubber of the gym floor when the workout is completed. Florid, played out, yet laughing, our cast-off terrors lumped like redolent carcasses around us. Okay, I'll go back to my fourth book now, For and Against. Came out, I think it was 2010. And I have one of those addictive personalities, but, you know, I've dealt with that over the years. But the one thing that I know I cannot give up, and I pray that I never will have to, is coffee. Everything else can go, but coffee can't. Because it's just so good. But there was a point, this happened maybe 7 or 8 years ago now. I was keeping coffee beans in the freezer, and I had the regular beans and the decaf side by side. And for a few days, I brewed decaf by mistake. I didn't know that it was decaf, and I thought, I didn't know what was wrong with me. And then when I realized, oh, I've been drinking decaf, and I made the real stuff and drank it, it was better than ever. So this is called decaf. Like donning a tiara of nails, those days when I brewed decaf by mistake, pain in my skull, something ungraspably awry, as if a child were suffocating in a van I couldn't open, or I woke to blue paint peeling like burnt skin, curtains in soggy heaps, the cat moaning. I thought the end was coming. After 3 days, I checked the labels, my ballpoint scrawl, frost faded, grabbed the right beans, Kenya AA, 18% cream from the Mennonites, and the ice jam of horror in my bones melted. The skittish lights on the walking bridge winked out. The sun, a pink fist, rose resolutely over the Irving storage facility, transfusing the soapy St. John. I kissed my dog on the muzzle, puzzling him, elated, like seeing a vision of Christ in firelight, or the Virgin's tears falling from granite, synapses rewired, all systems up. Not just coffee, but redemption, the troubled teenager relenting, asking for you, or the surgeon glancing up from the chart, saying, no, we were wrong, it's nothing after all. Happiness distilled, enhanced, a dark blend of joy, like glimpsing a handsome stranger arcing an axe under cedars, splitting stumps into kindling, the animal exhalation each time contact is made, the blade bites deeper, and realizing you are married to him. Okay, since Mark read a sonnet, I'm going to read a sonnet. I don't usually work in forms, but there was a period there where it was like all the Canadian poets were writing sonnets. So I thought, okay, God damn it, I'm going to write a couple of sonnets. This one ended up in an anthology called 100 Canadian Sonnets. It's called Impending Death of the Cat. Something's wrong with the cat, scarecrow. She wanes gossamer thin, ghostly, her spine a prominent span, a golden gate from which her mane of dandruff fur hangs. Hundreds at the vet, x-rays, blood tests, still no diagnosis. Palpated, rehydrated, she defeats our fears, but for how long? I fold chalice, soft wool, her stately sick bed, by fancy feast, patiently sop the hazards of vomit, clean rugs and linens ad nauseum, ignore the debris of death, messiness, futile routine of food and shit. Say it. Nothing will restore her health. And yet, remark her purr, her carriage, how she embodies the state of our marriage. I've had a lot of fun with dramatic monologues over the years, writing poems in the voices of other people, things, body parts, you name it. And it's a wonderful exercise to pose for yourself. It gives you like the freedom of speaking in a voice that is not your own, in a way, for me, allows you to say whatever you want to say. So I'll read a dramatic monologue. This is in the voice of Marie Antoinette. And it's in the moments after the guillotine has dropped. And a friend of mine told me that she would likely have a couple of seconds of brain activity before, what is hypoxia? He gave me the name for, what happens when the oxygen leaves the brain. Marie Antoinette's last thoughts. I'll say this. Every day I learn something new. Such sudden purity, all those hesternal woes severed, liberated from the grief of the body, its ridiculous needs, no hands to wring. How foolish I was in the younger years to succumb to flattery, blinding myself to the other's narrowness. I thought he took pleasure in pleasing me. How foolish also to think of the world as succession, lines, the autumnal promenade of the spine, when clearly it's ovoid, haphazard tumbling, the way time revolves, memory's carousel, my son laughing, a parfait of images, braided strands of topaz and gilt, the confection of defeat, surrender, the shouts of the crowd receding. They can't touch me. A sinking, weightlessness, and the elation of that, if only it would last, the embrace, a flame. Why, with such a capacity for joy, do we choose to create pain? Okay, and I'll finish with a few poems from my third book. Some of you might remember the TV series Little House on the Prairie. Yeah? Okay. Based on the books of Laura Ingalls Wilder. I grew up in the States. They're frontier tales and very well-known children's books in the United States. I read them when I was a kid, and I read them to my sons when they were little. My third book is called The Love Song of Laura Ingalls Wilder, and it's entirely dramatic monologues using the characters from the Laura Ingalls Wilder books. So most of the main characters speak, but I also had so much fun. This was the most fun that I had writing a book. I ended up using the animals in the stories, and then farm implements, body parts. Pa's penis talks in one of the poems. I just had a fantastic time. Every time I sat down, I was like, okay, who or what am I going to be in this poem? And they're basically, they're all me, but the voices are a way to say things that I might not otherwise say. And I'll just read a few of them. This first one comes from The Long Winter, which seems appropriate right now. And the family, the stove was very important to the family. Pa would get up in the morning, and he was the first one up, and he would go down and get the stove going. And then the girls, like sometimes, there are scenes where they have to brush the frost off of their beds, and then once Pa has got the area around the stove warm, then they run downstairs and they get dressed in front of the stove. So the stove was the center of the family throughout the long winter. And I started to think about how the stove might feel. This is called The Stove Considers Pa. Each morning he bows before me, a bundle of kindling in his arms. I am hollow. He lights the fire, feeds it, and soon I'm ticking, expansive radiant heat migrating from belly to stovetop to limbs. He warms his hands, grinning, pleased with what he has wrought. No thought for me, what it is to burn after abstinence, that my iron soul might prefer to be dark, untended, no one gathered around. He sits close to me, conspiratorially, then moves away. At night, my embers banked, I smolder, unhappy, petulant, torn. I don't know what I want. First, why does he ignore me? Then, why doesn't he leave me alone? By morning I'm settled, blackened but at peace, a comfortable chill. I treasure those times, untroubled, unstirred. Then he rises, bows before me. We're at it again. There's a great scene in Little House on the Prairie where they're camping on the prairie and Pa is playing his fiddle and a bird sings back. And the the fiddle and the bird sing back and forth to each other. It's called a nightingale in the book, but I've learned since that there were no nightingales on the prairie. I started to think about how Pa's fiddle felt about the nightingale. This is called Pa's Fiddle Recalls the Nightingale. Nothing happened. No rendezvous, no tryst, no tete-a-tete. I sang and she answered, her voice vaulting the willows by the creek. Above us, the night sky was a bowl dredged with cornmeal. I shivered down in the goosegrass, foxtails. Her frank invitation was so unsettling, as if I had glanced from a newspaper to see a stranger studying me, eyebrows raised. Did she mistake me for someone, something else? Nothing prepared me for this. I held myself proud, aloof, hollow with fear. My outward poise, my tuning, was suddenly all affectation. The truth is, her beauty undid me. I came unglued, unstrung. Of this I spoke to no one. She grew restless, bored, flittered away. On occasion the wind brought news, rumors of her infidelities. Privately I imagined she pined for me, made others unhappy. A memory of that night tucked under her wing. Years later, when I knew she was gone, I imitated her way of putting things. Crazy for her still, but sadder, not wiser. Her song became an old telegram, yellowed, folded twice in my heart, where it resides even now, leaf print, relic of a species no longer seen. Farming on the prairie was really hard work for them, and the books convey that very effectively. At one point, they get enough cash together that Pa can buy a new plow that is designed for the prairie. It's called the breaking plow. This is in the voice of the breaking plow. And I'll close with this. My cutting wheel leads, slicing a vein for the fluted plowshare. A roller of sod uncurls, a wave devolving. If only remorse could be turned so easily. I get carried away by the persuasion of horses, harness, Pa's compulsion. At the end of the row, the team pivots. I'm faced with the scene. Bucolic, really. Blackbirds descending in my wake to pick morsels, a feast of corpses. The grass's ancient discourse disrupted, torn, diaspora of jackrabbit, prairie dog, garter snake, worm. Then, long uneventful nights in the barn. I miss the whetted blade ripping, my wooden frame riding that keen edge. Time creates consequences. The next day and the next, I want to plow in the moment, act on impulse, no thought for tomorrow, for what others might think. But that's not the world in which I was forged. Hear the brood hens clucking, the hog's jaded snort. Put the earth under me and I will dig in. I'm not saying I'm blameless. I'm just saying I know. Thanks very much.